And welcome back to Hysteria, the podcast equivalent of getting a text from one of your friends that says, hey, can I be mean for a second?
Are you talking about our texts?
Yes, I am. But every time I get one of those from you, I'm like, absolutely.
Because you know when I'm going to be mean, it's real.
I'm going to stop my
Someone
entire
is
day.
really upset me.
I'm going to stop my entire day. You know, can I be mean for a second?
Yeah, get into it.
The finale of Succession is coming up this week on Sunday. I'm beside myself. It's a 90-minute finale, right?
Yes.
I want people in the Roy family to die. At this point, I want them to die. I do not. They've all done something irredeemable, and I really need a Shakespearean ending. I need death.
Do we count Marcia, though? Does Marcia have to die? Because I feel like she listened to her better angels in this last episode.
No, Marcia's not technically a Roy. I'm talking about
just Blood Roy. Roy.
I'm talking about a Blood Roy or a Tom Roy. A Tom. Maybe we could make a Tomlet and break a few bricks.
Tom Wambsgans Roy.
Oh man, yeah. Okay, so can't wait to see what happens. I am going to have a panic attack. These last 2 episodes have rendered me anxious.
Affected.
Yes.
I was affected.
I was affected. But I'm really excited to talk about different ways that anxiety plays out for us and the reasons it plays out and whether or not we're alone in that anxiety or if other people in other countries are feeling anxiety as well. Today, we are so excited to welcome a new member of the Crooked Media fam, a journalist and host of the new podcast, Pod Save the U.K. It's Coco Khan. In the spirit of transatlantic unity and a dash of corporate synergy, Coco will be joining us for the entire show. Coco, welcome to Hysteria. How are you?
Hello, mate. You all right? Yeah, good. You?
Oh,
how's the podcast
sauciness
going? Yeah, love it.
The podcast's going well. I'm joining you, having just wrapped our episode for this week. It's been a bonanza week in Britain of very sort of minor ministerial misconduct, which we take very, very seriously here. And by that, I mean not at all. And also just the ongoing car crash that is our nation and the economy.
Nice.
It's been a good week. How about you?
Same.
Well, listeners, if you couldn't tell by Coco's dreamy accent, she's a Brit. And according to her new podcast, Pod Save the U.K., which she hosts with comedian Nish Kumar, the U.K. also needs saving and not only having to remember that the words are God Save the King now. How do you sing it that way? I
the same.
Oh, babe, that's so sweet. You think I sing that song? I don't sing that song.
I mean, the Sex Pistols' God Save the Queen is, they're not going to change it to God Save the King. Okay, so here's what we're going to hash out today. Does America take after its mother country, or are we innovators when it comes to having problems? Are we fuckery Nepo babies like Lily Rose Depp? Or are we born into fuckery privilege, but did we take what we had and make it into something even more spectacular like Julia Louis-Dreyfus? To answer these pressing socio-political questions, we're going to do a US versus UK edition of Tour de Fuckery and compare and contrast the dumpster fires of our respective current events. So who has it worse, the US or the UK? Who wins, or rather, who loses? Let's make our way across the U.S. before we land in the U.K. Alyssa, what do we have up first?
Gang, Jean Carroll, she's coming for Trump again. And you know why? Because he cannot fucking control himself. So Jean is seeking additional damages from Trump. Recall, in the past few weeks, she received judgment for a settlement of $5 million because Trump was found liable for defaming her. So when you are found liable for defamation, what do? You take to a CNN town hall and you do it worse again and for everyone to hear and see.
I have no idea who the hell. She's a whack job.
So what did Trump do in the appalling CNN town hall? Let's see. He did things like say she was lying, mentally unstable, that he never met her, and one of my absolute favorites, which CNN really didn't do anything to stop. He said, well, Trump insisted he rarely visited Bergdorf Goodman and tried to raise questions about Carroll's account that he followed her into an unlocked dressing room. Quote, what kind of woman meets somebody and brings him up and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room? Hanky-panky. Sexual assault. Hanky-panky. Trump said, as some in the audience laughed, I don't know if she was married then or not. Well, he can't stop himself, and so she's also not going to stop. And as long as he keeps making these absurd statements that he's already been found guilty of, he's just going to keep going. And so we'll see what's next in E. Jean's latest battle.
So what do we think of E. Jean seeking new damages? I think it's...
As she should.
I think it's pretty cool.
As she should. Fuck that guy. Literally found guilty. And within 24 hours on television, the man lives in a world of no consequence. So I hope she keeps heaping them on top of him.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Coco, what do you make of this story?
What I found interesting about it as someone who, has just seen a kind of potted version of it here in the UK was the support that Trump has and how people sort of have these rallying cries when he says these horrible things about her appearance or about what I just think is very gross and lowering the tone of our kind of public debate. And I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle. But the other thing I wondered as well, because in the UK, we have very strong privacy laws around anything related to sexual violence. And so I wanted to ask you, did E. Jean Carroll have to reveal her identity? Was that a choice or was she forced?
So what happened was E. Jean wrote about the assault. She talked about it publicly, and Donald Trump retaliated by calling her a liar and defaming her. And as a result, E. Jean lost her job. She was an advice columnist at a publication in New York City. So she lost her job. She experienced professional repercussions, and she is suing him because what he said directly led to what happened to her professionally. And so it's not like it's not the same sort of levers of justice that you're talking about. Like, she wasn't trying to seek criminal relief. She just wanted
Could she have, though? Could she have?
The statute of limitations in New York had expired, but there was a new law in the state of New York that, I mean, this is getting in the weeds. There's a new law in the state of New York that basically allowed people who had been victimized by sexual misconduct to file for civil damages many years after the criminal statute of limitations had expired. And so E. Jean worked under that law. So it was, it's one of those things where Trump is just always going to be a sexist prick. If you remember those, like, reading about those experiments where, like, they gave rats cocaine and they just, like, there's one button that, like, you hit the button and it's, like, more cocaine, and the other button is, like, food. I think Donald Trump is like the rat with the cocaine button when it comes to attention. He cannot help himself. He simply cannot help it, even though it's like, this is really going to damage you, buddy. Like, you can't just keep hitting the cocaine button. Yeah. This is going to cost you tons and tons of money. We're talking about, like, taking letting the genie out of the bottle, can't put it back in. I wonder, Coco, if in the UK, prominent UK political candidates get away with that sort of misogynist rhetoric. Is there anybody who's kind of, like, frustratingly a dick about women?
Well, look, in this competition of who has the worst nation, and I'd like to point out that actually my nation had an empire, so whatever, take that as you will.
That's true.
But in this, like, terrible competition that nobody wins, we all lose, Trump is unprecedented. Certainly in the UK, obviously our kind of closest comparison was the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He was similar in the sense that he seemed to be utterly shameless. He would say anything. He was a womanizer. He was a philanderer, although he did it within the kind of context of marriage. He wasn't known to be having numbers of a kind of the way that Trump did, of having however many models on his phones or appearing at parties and being handsy. That didn't quite happen. We have had MPs and serving politicians who have been involved in sexual assault allegations. And I'm happy to say that most of them have been dealt with very, very swiftly. But our two nations are very, very close. And so even though you're seeing maybe Trump is exceptional in the sense of how he talks about women and releasing that genie from the bottle, but obviously we're in an internet-connected age, and I have definitely seen that language maybe not play out in the political theatre, but play out walking around. Our one great US-UK collaboration, which isn't Succession or The Office, is Andrew Tate. You know, he's British American, right? And so he's a really good example. Like, okay, maybe we haven't seen it play out in Westminster, but we are seeing that play out very much. The tone of conversation has become very misogynistic, and we are all losing for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a super interesting point to bring up because, you know, Andrew Tate's audience and the people who are super charged to watch Donald Trump in a town hall, there's probably not a ton of overlap. And it's almost like there's this pipeline of misogyny that has kind of secretly and quietly behind the scenes gone from like the older generation that we were like, whew, they're getting old. Few years, we're going to be rid of them. But there's kind of a renewal of it among young men now with Andrew Tate, etc. It's pretty disturbing to witness.
Can I ask you a question about E. Jean Carroll?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is maybe tangential, but a little while ago, I was reading an article about whether women in high-powered positions are actually working, because quite often you have a situation where you'll have a generation or say in politics or even sports where women rise to the top, and then after that you actually see the numbers shrink. And this article was just like a piece that was offering some opinion on it, said that they thought it was because when those women rose to those positions, they were treated so badly that it was a deterrent for any other woman to kind of do that. And I was wondering how you felt about the legacy of E. Jean Carroll. Do you think that how she is treated is going to inspire another generation of women to be like, no, he did do that, and I am taking him to court. That is my right. That's the only way to punish him. Or will it actually make a lot of women go, do you know what? I can't deal with this. This is horrible.
Alyssa, what do you think?
I think it would. I think that if she came forward 10 years ago, it would be different than her coming forward now. I think that because women specifically have been so overwhelmingly supportive and people have been rooting for her and people have largely, you know, denounced everything that he has said about her in public. I think that it still goes to the point that no woman would make up being sexually assaulted because what is the fucking upside? But I do think that her experience would prompt more women to come forward, or maybe not prompt more, but at least not deter people as much to come forward, just based on public sentiment, not necessarily on how horrific he's been.
Mm-hmm. I think there are really prominent examples of women being treated so poorly that it makes other women not want to run for things in the U.S. And I like specifically, I think when it comes to elected office, I think that there are some women who have been just treated so abhorrently. I mean, Nancy Pelosi does not care. Like, she just does not give a fuck.
Well, look at Anita Hill for coming forward.
If you look at somebody like Anita Hill, there's a specific type of woman who weathers the storm. And we see the storm and we see that she weathers it. But a lot of people see that and they think like, I can't do that. I don't want to put my family through that is something that I hear a lot from women. And it's really, I mean, even like Sarah Palin, as awful as she was and as, you know, as a national nightmare as she was, the way that her children were discussed publicly, the way that her family was talked about publicly, I think was really probably upsetting to people at all points on the political spectrum. But I think E. Jean Carroll is an example of it going well.
Oh, brilliant.
And what does that say?
Yeah, I know. What does that say about us? But like, she just, you know, didn't care. That you look at the coverage of her here in the US and you see that it's largely positive, and the only people that are really critiquing her or being shitty about it are like hyper partisans who, no matter what she did and no matter what she said, would say the same things. So I think it's probably it's like a best case scenario with her. Okay, story number 2: culture wars being fought in the sports arena. Less than a week after removing the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence from their Pride lineup, the Dodgers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, my team, on Monday reinvited the organization to Pride Night amid backlash from LGBTQ+ and civil rights groups, as well as local politicians and even Dodgers employees. Dodgers staffers across all sexual orientations were vocal in their dismay. On the other side of the debate are people like Marco Rubio, who is from Florida.
Go away, Marco.
No, you care about the Dodgers so much, dude. Name a guy on the roster.
Right. Stick to the Marlins.
Name a fucking guy. Anyway, and conservative think tanks, I don't think any of these people who are really upset about an LGBTQ group based in Los Angeles being featured at a Dodgers game. I don't think they even care about the Dodgers, but whatever. This has been a huge story in the U.S., weirdly. And even people who don't pay attention to baseball are sticking their noses in it. The Los Angeles sisters have said they accepted an apology from the Dodgers leadership over the decision Wednesday to dump them from Pride Night. And they said they will indeed be honored with a Community Hero Award they were originally to receive. So, here's my question for you, Coco. Why do you think sports, I know in the UK, sports are also a hot zone for culture wars. Is there
Football is life, as you know. You watch Ted Lasso, right?
Football is life.
I hate that show. I truly hate that show. I feel like the people who wrote it don't know anything about soccer. I'm like, this show is not. They're like, well, we just had the match. Cool. Well, what happened? What happened during the match? But Coco, like, in what ways are you seeing culture war issues play out on the sports pitch, the sports arena in the UK?
I mean, we are seeing it play out a lot. I'm sure you've been following the news with Real Madrid and Vinicius Jr. He's had to speak out against genuinely some horrific chants and racism from the fans. It's a sad fact of contemporary football that if you're a black player, you do get inordinate amounts of abuse. But I mean, with Vinicius Jr., they were hanging effigies of him. Like it's horrible. And you can imagine how loud you have to be chanting for it to be picked up by the cameras. The cameras aren't even looking at the crowd. You know what I mean? Like it was very bad. And so he's had to speak out. He's the latest in a long line of players who've had to speak out. Marcus Rashford is a player that we have over here in the UK. He's spoken out against racism, but he also spoke out about poverty. And funnily enough, people really went for him on that as well, which you would think that, okay, how is that a culture war issue? Hungry children, nobody likes a hungry child. I thought we got over that after Oliver Twist. What is this? This is not 1890s.
We should maybe let's take them down a few notches. Let's take those hungry children down a few notches.
Yeah, I don't like them. I like them up the chimneys. Like, let's let it go. It's 2023, and I think there is this sense that if you were being generous to the people who are, against sports people speaking out, they might say, you're not an elected politician. It's not your place to influence society. Okay, but fine. But you are a sports person. It is your place to influence the pitch. There is no real reason why they shouldn't be able to. Anyway, to return to your actual question, are we seeing these things play out? Yes, we are. We're seeing them almost a bit like contractions when you're giving birth, getting closer together, like the little incidents. So I don't know what baby is going to come out, but I definitely feel that like football over here, soccer as you call it, is increasingly becoming more of a progressive space. There's was a campaign that we talked about on Pod Save the U.K, which was directed at men, saying if there are women in the crowd, stop being mean, use nice language, don't touch them, you know what I mean? So I think there is a shift that's kind of happening. I know it's bad, but also kind of good that it's
totally.
Right.
Just sad that it has to,
Yeah, I know. And I think that in a way, sports being this one place where actually people from all walks of life are united in, we live in segregated times, don't we? Like, economic segregation, racial segregation. There's something about sports that's really sort of brings people together. So it is a battleground, and I'm glad it is, because increasingly, where else are we all going to have a chat about it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just to bring up the labor analogy, you're moving. There's progress, right? Labor means that you're it becomes more and more horrible, but you're progress. Do you see that progress is? Do you really think that you're seeing progress, or is it sort of on a knife's edge? Could things go either way right now, or is progress inevitable?
I mean, I'm a relentless optimist, and perhaps that makes me deluded and stupid. I don't know. You have to keep going somehow, don't you? I think the foundation of both our politics, whether we iterate them here in a UK context or an American context, is based on hope, right? Things can get better. We are optimists. We must keep going. And so I do think that, yes, things are getting a little bit better in terms of, even if you just look at the polling, people are much less resistant to outsiders. People are more pro-gay marriage. They are angry about gender pay gaps. They are, there's all the polling tells you that the average British person is on the right direction. I think the problem is that the people who are the outliers are being empowered to dominate way too much of the airtime, way too much of the headspace, they're just given far too much influence. So yeah, I think that there is a baby is coming, a lovely baby, a baby of progress, but will that baby be listened to or kept on the bench? That's the thing I don't know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, or maybe the baby will be born and everyone will be like, "Oh, this is a pretty ugly baby," but we're not going to say anything because
Rosemary's Baby.
Or there's quite a lot of infants are born, and you're like, "That's a funny looking baby," but I'm going to tell the parents it's cute. Okay, story number 3. We've got 2 new Republican presidential candidates dropping. First, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, or in my head, I use the way that like Donald Trump pronounces it, which is Ron DeSantis, like the name Rhonda.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Ron DeSantis will announce he's running for president during a discussion with Twitter CEO Elon Musk this Wednesday. Can you think of 2 more charismatic men who will connect
that's why it's
with
audio only.
salt of the earth, red state voters? I cannot think of an Iowa caucus voter who thinks more that they want to hear. They're like, you know what, who I love? Elon Musk. Love Elon Musk.
Relatable.
On the farms, in the cornfields. The cornfields whisper, Musk. Elon
Soy
Musk.
Subsidies.
Absolutely. It's just the stoop. Ron, you are too online. You are too online if you think that this is a way for you to connect with voters, but whatever.
Like Kendall to his ex-wife. You've lost the thread. You're too online.
You're too online. Musk and DeSantis will host an event on Twitter Spaces, which is a platform for audio chats.
Made up.
Stupid.
Fake news.
It'll be moderated by David Sachs. God, it just keeps getting better.
Gets better and better.
A tech
Where's
entrepreneur. Where's Rudy? Where's 4 seasons total landscaping? Who is a Musk confidant and DeSantis supporter. Second on Monday, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, who is the only Black Republican in the Senate. The only one. Announced his run for the Republican presidential nomination. The senator, who has represented South Carolina in the Senate since 2013, portrays himself as a true conservative with a positive story to tell.
He does. I did find his speech compelling.
But you can't run a country on stories, No.
Well, you forget I work for Barack Obama. We had some stories in the beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have to have some policies. You use your story. You use stories to bring people in, and then you got to have ideas to make shit run. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm not saying that Tim Scott had big ideas. I'm just saying that structurally and stylistically, his speech was listenable and not the dumpster fire that things like Trump's inaugural speech were.
I mean, and Ron DeSantis does sound exactly like Frog from the new Apple TV Plus series Frog and Toad. He is really uncharismatic. Okay, so here's the thing about the presidency. I hate how much it's turned into, and political campaigns in the U.S. And Coco, I don't know if it's like this in the U.K. I feel like they've turned into speaking contests, like media appearance contests.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's ironic for me to say, for you to complain about this as a Barack Obama supporter, because that's kind of how he got everybody's attention, by being great at giving a speech. But he won people's votes by being great at connecting with what people wanted. Coco, do you feel like in the UK, it's sort of it's kind of an empty, superficial charisma contest for people who are seeking high office?
So can I ask you a question first?
Of course.
And my question would be, before Ron DeSantis was kind of held up as being a potential presidential candidate, had you heard of him?
No,
Yes.
just that he was like a loser in the House of Representatives who had no friends. Yeah, that's it.
Great review.
Wait, really? Really? Was he like Mike? Was he like Mike Pence, where everyone made fun of him behind his back?
No, worse. They were just like there's a member of Congress who was in a committee with him and never heard him speak.
Wow.
Because he was a fucking dud. He is a dud. I mean, Trump's not wrong about that. But no, he just said some like race baiting shit and got famous with crazy people.
Right. Okay. Because I think that one of the differences between our system and yours is that, generally speaking, the politicians that end up becoming leaders are ones that are already working in some ways. And we have quite a lot of kind of political media. So we have like Prime Minister's Question Time. We, have the other Question Time that's on the BBC where the general public just shout at politicians, basically. So, I mean, we have a 24-hour political cycle in a way, which means that around election, no, you don't really get as much of the mania. Well, that's my assessment anyway. I'm sure there'll be other listeners asking how I could possibly say that. But, I think that the kind of concentration is maybe higher there.
Yeah. Here's a question for you, Coco. So for us, here we are 19 months out or 18 months out, however long we are out from the actual presidential election. Yeah. And our cycle is so long. Isn't yours much more condensed? Is that
God, yeah.
Right?
We're 12
I feel like we need
away.
That. Yeah.
We're 12 months away from an election and nobody's really talking about it.
Oh,
and
God.
Yeah.
Erin, that's what your dream come true. Dream come true.
It is like a really bad sneaker drop, though, when it does finally come around. Because it's like, there isn't really, okay, maybe the shorter build up is better. I accept that. I'll pass it on to Britain. But when it actually happens, I have often felt that there isn't enough time to kind of interrogate stuff, and it does go a mile a minute. And then there is the moment where it's like election night, and that seems to be 20 hours long of people being like, and in Scarborough, nothing's happened. And that goes on over and over and over again. And it is, you have all the hype, and then in the end, you just get like the worst pair of shoes you wanted anyway. I mean, that's my opinion because I'm 35 years old, and every single election I've been old enough to vote for, my guy hasn't won. So, I mean, obviously for me, it's rubbish. At least you guys you've been able to vote for someone who won. That must be nice. How did that feel?
Oh, it's cool. It was super
Twice.
Cool.
Twice. 2008, 2012.
My first
and
election.
Biden. Sorry, Jesus. Oh my God.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Oh man.
Edit that out.
Yeah, I guess like the first presidential election that I was able to vote in the U.S. was George W. Bush's second, his reelection, and I was at a university with an overwhelmingly conservative student body among the men. The women were a little bit more even split, but it was a Catholic university, and so everyone was like, "Yay, jingoism, Iraq War!" Like everyone was so like into what he was doing.
Sounds like the worst college ever.
Oh my God!
I thought college was meant to be a time of great kind of finding yourself and pushing out into questioning the notions that have been handed down to you.
Alyssa Mastromonaco at University of Vermont. My era of discovery and socialism began in 94.
Yeah. Cut to Erin Ryan at the University of Notre Dame being like, where the fuck am I? This is crazy.
But I mean, on a serious note, like I think that's actually, hearing you tell those two stories, I think is really important, because I think sometimes there's a fallacy that like young equals whatever. And that's not true, as your university experience told you. You know?
I mean,
young conservatives exist.
Young conservatives exist. Amy Coney Barrett, the Supreme Court justice that Donald Trump appointed in the waning days of his presidency, the woman who helped overturn Roe v. Wade, was a professor at the University of Notre Dame Law School, which is my college. So that sucked. That sucks a lot. But I will say that young people, even young people who identify as Catholics and who are religious, are more left-leaning than their older counterparts. So, Barack Obama won that. Barack Obama won that campus in 2008 and 2012. So, like, there's just, but it does, it does feel nice to win. I gotta say, election night in the U.S., I hate it. I hate it so much. And I think people, and I think that there are certain people at Crooked, certain prominent people at Crooked seem to like it. And I'm like, this is not fun. This is not fun for me.
They liked it back in 2008 too. And I did not like it. I was like, God, just get me through this. I mean, it was
look,
they like living on a knife's edge,
John, Tommy, and Dan, great guys. I do not understand anybody who says they like politics.
No, I don't think Pfeiffer does. He was always kind of with me and very lots of Tums and
this is the most inside Crooked gossip I've had.
Stick around.
Working on this show.
Come
this is
anytime.
Great. Yeah.
You can join our group chat. I will send you a. Can I be mean for a second?
Yeah, just us though.
Yeah, nobody else. I mean, Okay.
Nobody else.
We'll talk more offline. No, but I don't understand. There is a specific type of person that can enjoy the run up to the election and the rhetoric and the drama. And
I think it's people who really look at it as theater, right? Who can detach a little bit from the consequences.
Well, we've talked about this before,
I know.
The closer you are to the consequences of the policy, the less fun it is for you.
Ayanna Presley, right? She said that on our show.
Yeah, the people that are closest to the pain should be the ones that are closest to the policy.
Closest to power.
What she said.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch other people? Because I watch the American elections, but I'm in Britain, and I have a different response. Obviously, do you ever watch As? Did you watch Brexit?
Yes. I watched
Brexit.
Brexit. I love France. France is a hot mess. I enjoy watching that from afar until we got our own Marie Le Pen.
Yeah.
I was like paying attention to what was going on in Israel. I don't have any particular personal ties to Israel apart from its like role in geopolitics, but I was kind of with like fear and horror because it seems like things are not going well over there. But I think when I watch, when I listen to Alyssa and I both listen to the BBC like news hour every single day. So we like are more plugged in, I think, than the average American would be, which doesn't really say much. But I do pay attention in that I am like, man, it seems like things are kind of going downhill. It seems like they had kind of a
little dodgy.
Yeah,
and does it feel good or bad? Because I must confess, I have a touch of when I see another country doing badly, I'm like, yes, not alone.
You know what?
I think 5%.
I almost felt like guilty. I was like, oh my God, we created Trump and now Trump's spreading across the globe. And so I felt a little guilty, genuinely. I don't enjoy seeing
Don't worry, Boris he's been a charlatan for a very long time.
Yeah. I feel like that perspective has enabled me to be comforted by the fact that Trump didn't invent this. He just sort of jumped on a wave.
Good point.
Like he's not an evil genius. He's an evil noticer of things that he can like tag team onto, like, whatever was behind Brexit, Nigel Farage and all of those people, like they're all kind of on the same dark wavelength. And I don't think any of them can take credit for coming up with that. And that in a way kind of is like, okay, well, whatever we're dealing with is like bigger than Donald Trump. And bigger than our country and bigger than the UK. But that means that we all kind of have a common enemy. Once we can identify what that is, we have something in common that we can all fight against. It doesn't really matter where we're from because there's a thread that we all kind of need to figure out how to snip, if that makes any sense.